Today, we delve into the suspense thriller To Jillian on Her 37th Birthday, released in 1996. The protagonists are a married couple, George and Lisa. Soon after their marriage, the couple embarks on a vacation to a remote island, which happens to be Lisa's childhood home. Here, they encounter Lance, Lisa's childhood friend and neighbor. George shows no signs of jealousy and maintains a friendly relationship with Lance. One day, the two men arrange to go fishing at sea, planning to return only by the following day.
Have fun. Behave yourselves.
After seeing them off, Lisa finds herself alone at home, and her drug addiction relapses. Incidentally, Lisa is a drug addict. George, on the other hand, was the judge who presided over her case. Their acquaintance began as follows. Lisa was arrested for drug possession, and George leniently sentenced her to 2 years of probation, subsequently even helping her to overcome her addiction. This might explain why Lisa married George, who is more than 2 decades her senior. Now, let's return to the present. To combat her drug cravings, Lisa swam in the sea for half an hour. However, upon returning home, she had a distinct feeling that someone had entered the house. The visitor was Kent, Lisa's ex-boyfriend. Although Lisa didn't dislike him, she still resented his unannounced arrival. Kent, however, claimed his visit was not sudden. He had sent Lisa a postcard last week, stating he would visit today. Lisa stated that she had not received the postcard.
You know, you really shouldn't be here. Thank God George is out fishing.
Kent had come seeking solace, as his wife had left him, taking their children with her. He casually picked up a bottle of vodka, took a couple of sips, and then poured out his woes to Lisa. As evening descended, a heavily intoxicated Kent urged Lisa to dance with him. Lisa reluctantly protested, saying, "You should go," but then, smiling, she began to dance. As they danced, they tumbled onto the sofa, and then the screen went black.
Do this.
The next morning, Lisa, who had fallen asleep on the sofa, was awakened by the sound of a boat horn. She rose to see that George and the others had returned.
Shit.
Meanwhile, Kent lay naked on the bed, unresponsive to her calls. Lisa looked closer and was immediately stunned. Kent was dead. With no time for further thought, she quickly opened the cellar located beneath the dining table, dragged the body inside, and concealed it. At this moment, George and the others entered the house, carrying a very large fish. Lisa emerged from the room with a bag slung over her shoulder, containing Kent's clothes. She claimed she hadn't slept well last night and was now going for a swim to clear her head. George didn't think much of it, still engrossed in the joy of catching the big fish. Lisa seized the opportunity to sink Kent's clothes into the sea. Upon returning home, George held an empty vodka bottle and asked her about the liquor, as she never drank spirits. Lisa pondered for a moment, deciding to attribute it to a drug relapse to divert his attention.
I need to talk to you.
The two sat down at the dining table, preparing to talk. George's chair was directly above the cellar, and with a body inside, the lid couldn't close completely, making George feel unstable. He then stomped hard on the cellar lid. Lisa heard the sound of a neck breaking, felt a wave of nausea, and rose to go outside for some fresh air. George was puzzled by his wife's behavior.
I'll talk to her.
Lance approached Lisa, expressing his concern and assuring her that he would fully support her, no matter what problems she faced. Lisa, of course, couldn't confess. She told Lance to go back and return in the afternoon for grilled fish.
Okay.
At this point, George discovered an unfamiliar watch. Not only that, but he also found the flowers and chocolates Kent had brought. After Lisa entered the house, George asked her about these items. Seeing her story falling apart, Lisa gave up hiding and confessed that Kent had been there.
Kent?
Nothing happened.
Well, if nothing happened, why didn't you tell me he was coming?
We didn't know he was coming. He sent a postcard, but we never got it.
Well, then why did he leave before Lance and I got back?
Lisa reluctantly said Kent hadn't left yet, then pointed towards the cellar. George opened it to find Kent hiding inside. Adding to his vexation, the man was stark naked. George, suppressing his anger, scoffed a few times. When Kent remained motionless, he reached out to touch him, only to discover that he was dead. Lisa stated it was likely a heart attack. He had always had a weak heart, compounded by drinking too much yesterday. George irritably asked.
He's naked!
He showed up here drunk, he went for a swim, he came back, he drank some more, and then he fell asleep, and that's how I found him. I swear nothing happened.
Seeing Lisa vehemently defend herself, George's heart softened. He went over and embraced her, stating that he believed her. They dragged the body to the utility room, intending to find a suitable time to transport it to the city and report it to the police. At this moment, George noticed Kent's neck was broken. Lisa claimed. George was speechless. This would undoubtedly be sensationalized by the media as Judge murders wife's former lover. However, it was fortunate that the autopsy would reveal the cause of death as a heart attack. George said to dress him and then report it to the authorities.
They're at the bottom of the bay.
What?
I told you I panicked.
How the hell am I supposed to deliver him without clothes?
The two tried to find clothes, but after searching for a long time underwater, they found nothing. Lisa suggested that he could wear George's clothes, as they would fit him anyway.
Even your underwear should fit him.
Well, you should know all about that.
George believed they could not dress the body in his clothes, as this would not only fail to deceive the police but also make them appear guilty. With no other option, they would have to report the incident with the body unclothed. Before setting off, he wanted to clean the engine with methanol. So he asked Lisa to find the methanol, telling her it was stored in a vodka bottle. Lisa searched for a long time without success, then suddenly realized that it was the liquor Kent had been drinking yesterday.
So he drank all the methanol, too.
George knew that it would now be even harder to explain their situation. After a moment's thought, he stated that they could only sink the body to the bottom of the sea. Lisa expressed her lack of understanding. She questioned why they should hide the body when they were not the murderers.
But we didn't kill him, he just died.
Who do you think's going to believe that?
George explained that with poisoning, a broken neck, and nudity combined, not even a miracle could save them in court. Lisa had no choice but to agree. The two wrapped the body and carried it onto the boat. Then they found an abandoned large iron stove, intending to tie it to the body and sink it into the sea. As they were moving it, Lance suddenly appeared.
Thought I'd come over a little early and help you chop up some potatoes or something.
George falsely claimed they were disposing of the iron stove as trash, while Lisa told Lance to go scale the fish first, saying they would return once they were finished. Lance then asked, "Can a girl move something this heavy? Let me do it instead." With no other option, Lisa had to let him take over, then quickly ran to the boat and hid the body under a seat. However, Lance helping to carry it onto the boat wasn't enough, he also insisted on accompanying them to dispose of it. The couple had no choice but to take him with them, steering the boat to the deep-sea area. George gave Lisa a significant look. So Lisa pushed Lance into the water, then jumped in herself, and began playfully splashing with him. George seized the opportunity and began to tie the body and the iron stove together with a rope. But before he could finish, Lance wanted to return to the boat. Seeing this, Lisa quickly called out to Lance, then drew him underwater and voluntarily gave him a kiss. However, the kiss startled Lance, causing him to swim back to the small boat even faster. George had to give up, untying the rope and quickly hiding the body under the seat. After Lance got on board, seeing that George hadn't yet thrown it, he assumed George lacked the strength and enthusiastically threw the iron stove into the sea. All their hard work had come to nothing. After returning to shore, Lisa told Lance to go home, explaining that the grilled fish was canceled because George had a backache. Once Lance had left, George and Lisa began to blame each other. George claimed it was all Lisa's fault for maintaining ties with her ex-boyfriend, which had led to such significant trouble. Lisa retorted that George was to blame for putting methanol in a wine bottle, otherwise, Kent would not have been poisoned to death. However, arguing like this was not a solution. Lisa still believed they should report it to the police.
We have to take him to Rockland.
Fine. I'd be happy to go along with that, except for one thing. He's got to be wearing his clothes!
They parted ways on bad terms. George, consumed by distress, drank to drown his sorrows. Meanwhile, Lisa, in a fit of anger, left home and went to Lance's house. Upon arriving, she discovered Kent's clothes hanging there to dry. It turned out that after the clothes had been washed ashore, Lance had picked them up. She began to ponder how to get the clothes back. After some casual conversation, Lance asked her, what was the meaning of that kiss underwater earlier?
How does she stole times?
Lisa seized upon this ambiguous moment, offering to help Lance with her laundry, and then took Kent's clothes. Thus, Lisa returned home excitedly to tell George that Kent's clothes had been found. To her surprise, George was not pleased at all. For, fueled by alcohol, he had already dismembered the body and sealed it under the steps of the gazebo with cement. Lisa was stunned. How could such a brutal act be committed? George retorted irritably. I was merely cleaning up your mess. Lisa paused to consider. And asked if he had received a postcard this week. George replied that he had not. Lisa felt he was lying. A horrifying suspicion began to emerge in her mind. George had received the postcard, knew Kent was coming, and deliberately put methanol in the wine bottle to murder Kent. Consequently, Lisa prepared to take the boat to town to report the crime. George discovered this, pursued Lisa, and, through continuous explanations and reassurances, eventually managed to calm her down. However, the two individuals had already begun to eye each other with suspicion. Before retiring for the night, George confined Lisa to the cellar, fearing she might attempt to alert the authorities. The following day, as George prepared to remove Lisa, he spotted Lance approaching, forcing him to carry Lisa back into the house. He then emerged to inform Lance that Lisa's addiction had deteriorated, and during a severe episode the previous night, she had nearly taken her own life. He was planning to take Lisa back to the city for rehabilitation. As they conversed, Lisa managed to sever her restraints with a knife and then fled overland towards Lance's residence. Having dispatched Lance, George boarded the boat and poured all of Lisa's medication, intended for her recovery, into a bottle of water, an act that suggested an intention to poison her. Elsewhere, Lance arrived home to find Lisa.
He's gonna kill me.
In a state of panic, Lisa claimed that George had murdered Kent and was now attempting to kill her as well. She insisted that if he doubted her, he should examine the gazebo steps, as Kent's remains were interred beneath them. Upon hearing this, Lance calmed Lisa, assuring her not to worry, and stating he would now investigate the matter thoroughly. To her surprise, a short while later, Lance returned, accompanied by George. It became apparent that Lance had placed more trust in George's account, believing Lisa's erratic behavior was merely a manifestation of her drug addiction. And so, George proceeded to tie Lisa to a chair. With no other recourse, Lisa could only implore Lance to verify her claims by examining the steps for any sign of a body.
Lance, you promised me.
George, of course, objected, arguing that the steps had been painstakingly constructed and should not be destroyed on account of a madwoman's ravings. However, Lance was determined to fulfill his promise. The two men headed to the gazebo, with Lance bringing his gun, wary of any potential disruption from Lisa. Beneath the gazebo, George suggested, "Friend, let's just make it look good, there's no need to actually smash anything." Yet, Lance evidently took his commitment to Lisa quite seriously.
Well, I promised her.
And so, Lance commenced striking the steps with a hammer. As he did so, George covertly reached for the nearby firearm. Meanwhile, Lisa managed to overturn a table, intending to use the scattered tools to sever her bindings. It was then that she discovered a postcard, none other than the one Kent had sent. The postcard, it seemed, had been in Lance's possession all along. Lisa had a sudden realization, it was Lance who had wanted Kent dead, intending to frame George for the murder. She swiftly severed her bonds and rushed towards the gazebo. Concurrently, Lance uncovered the dismembered remains beneath the steps.
George, no! Please! I know you didn't do it!
Lisa arrived just in time to stop George from firing a second shot. At that moment, Lance rose and struck George over the head. George lay motionless on the steps, blood flowing from his head. Observing his injuries, Lisa concluded he was dead without even checking for a pulse. The two returned to Lance's home, where Lance began to confess his feelings to Lisa, revealing he had harbored a one-sided love for years, growing increasingly infatuated. Noticing Lisa staring at the postcard, Lance explained that he had forgotten to give it to her, adding that he hadn't peeked at its contents and therefore had no idea Kent was coming. Lisa, unable to believe him, quickly ran out of the room. Arriving at the gazebo, she discovered George's body was gone. At that moment, Lance pursued her, repeatedly asserting his innocence. As he spoke, George appeared from behind and shot Lance dead. By now, George had completely unraveled. He secured Lisa's feet in a cement barrel, intending to pin everything on Lance. To celebrate his successful evasion of guilt, he took a bottle of wine from Lance's house and began to drink. As he drank, he rehearsed what he would tell the police. Lance murdered Kent, then trapped Lisa, but fortunately, I shot him dead. Unexpectedly, as he drank, his vision went black, and he could no longer see anything. It turned out that this bottle actually contained methanol, which Lance had borrowed earlier. This meant Kent had truly died of a heart attack. There was no murderer from the start. Now, the truth was revealed. Lisa asked George to untie her. The next moment, George accidentally fell into the sea but was fortunately caught by a fishing net and unharmed. Lisa decided to save herself. Using the tools at hand, she retrieved a chainsaw, hung it up, and intended to use it to cut the ropes on her hands. However, with no leverage, it was utterly ineffective. So Lisa pulled the chainsaw, hoping to saw through the ropes. Unexpectedly, once activated, the chainsaw began to swing wildly, nearly cutting her. After swinging for a while, the chainsaw cut through the gazebo's pillar, and the roof collapsed. A decorative iron rod from the top impaled George. It seemed that all struggles and schemes ultimately stood no chance against the arrangements of fate. The chainsaw continued its erratic movements, severing the ropes that bound Lisa. Lisa fell into the sea, where the water was approximately 2 meters deep. However, the cement on her feet prevented her from surfacing. At this moment, a police boat happened to pass by. Lisa reached out, grabbed a rope on the side of the boat, and surfaced. She was eventually rescued successfully. Afterward, the police carefully chiseled away the cement from Lisa's feet, and together they took the boat back to the city. On the way, Lisa recounted the entire incident to the police, who listened and took diligent notes. Suddenly feeling thirsty, she took out the bottle of water that George had drugged. The movie ends here.